Hello everybody and welcome to Sound Out 2025. We're here at the Royal Festival Hall. My name is Patrick and I'm joined on stage by musicians from the incredible orchestra, the London Sinfonietta. Let's meet them. On piano we've got Ishani. On various percussion instruments is Ollie. Our two woodwind players are on the flute and the tiny piccolo, Sirius. Playing the clarinet and the bigger bass clarinet is Mark. And our two string players are on the cello, Tamaki, and on the violin is Alice. All of us at the London Sinfonietta love playing new music, and we love working with those people who imagine and dream up brand new pieces of music and create new things using sound. We call those people composers, and today's concert is all about composing, how composers compose their music, and hopefully it might inspire you to do some composing too. That first piece of music we just played wasn't written by one composer, but by 5. First of all, 4 students from Year 9 at St Ignatius College in North London composed some musical ideas. And then a more experienced composer who was in Year 13 at the time at the Purcell School, called Edward Tate. He shaped those ideas into that piece, which was called Rhapsody. Let's think now about how composers start composing a piece of music. There are many ways to start, but lots of composers are inspired to compose a piece of music by something that's not actually music. And next composer who we're going to perform a piece of, Ben Lunn, was inspired when he read 2 very short poems called haiku. The first haiku that Ben chose reads, "They fall and fall, blossoms on a balcony, bright melancholy." And Ben composes music in huge cascades of energetic and colourful notes that drop from the highest pitches right down to the lowest. The second haiku is quite different. It reads, "Shadows, changes of light, sunlight fading, clouds gather, stepping off the path." It feels really mysterious, and Ben composes music that's really hushed, using eerie sounds in the string instruments and deep, resonant sounds in the piano. You may have noticed that those two pieces of music are really very short, like the haiku themselves, so let's hear them both together now. You could have a go at this back in school. You could write your own haiku and then explore what different sounds you can find that fit the image you've created. Our next composer has a really strong image in mind, the image of someone skipping. Her name is Erilyn Wallen, and currently she holds a really important job in the musical life of the United Kingdom. She's the master of the King's music, which means that sometimes she writes music for royal and state occasions. But she also writes music for the concert hall, and that's a piece we're going to hear today. Now, before we hear what it sounds like to skip in music, let's consider some other types of movement. Mark, what would it sound like if we had some musical walking? And what would that sound like, Mark, if you were running instead? Did you hear? The running was much faster than the walking, but in both cases, Mark moved notes by step, which means he started on one note and went to the note next to it, just like walking up or down a staircase and using every step on your way. But if we had words like jump or leap or skip, I think it would sound quite different. Mark, what would jumping or leaping or skipping sound like? Now Mark's using notes that are much further apart. And Erilyn Wallen uses the same idea in her piece, Skip, but she also adds a really fantastic rhythm, and we can learn that rhythm together now. Why don't you repeat after me? I can skip and jump up about. I can skip and jump up and bounce. Watch me leap and skip around. Watch me leap and skip around. So this is Skip by Erilyn Wallen. If you are interested in composing in school or at home, the London Sinfonietta has created a series of composition challenges which shows you how to start. You can find out more about them on our website. Some students from Freezy Water St George's Church of England Primary School in Enfield took part in our composition challenge to create a musical map or grid. They created this fantastic grid of 6 squares, and in each square you might notice there's a different musical instruction. So in the first square, one of our musicians has to play a very famous tune called the Ode to Joy, but in another square, 2 musicians play a duo or a duet, and in a third square, it asks for 5 seconds of silence. There was one thing the students from Freezy Water St George's left up to us, or left to chance, and that was which order to play those squares in. And they suggested to find out we roll a dice. So if we roll a 3, then we play square 3. So we came up with this order earlier on, rolling our dice. Here's the final dice roll. It's a 3, which means our piece is going to end with 5 seconds of silence. Now, the young composers from Freezy Water St George's gave it a brilliant title. They have called their piece Random Acts of Fun. And as this is the first ever public performance, it's called the world premiere. So that was the world premiere, the first ever performance of Random Acts of Fun by students from Year 5 of Freezy Water St George's School in Enfield. Thank you to them for composing that piece. And I think actually now we should all take part in a world premiere, a first performance. And we have had written for this concert a piece called Echo Echo by the composer Robin Haig. And as that title suggests, it's about echoing musical ideas back and forth. So what's going to happen is some musicians from the London Sinfonietta will play a melody and then we'll sing it back as an echo. So can you all sing that with me? Go. La da 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 da. Then we listen. And we sing. La da 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 da. We can listen again. And we sing. Now you may notice that our orchestra has increased in size as we're joined by 38 brilliant young musicians from the London boroughs of Waltham Forest, Haringey and Enfield, and they form our Sound Out Young Ensemble. So here is the world premiere of Echo Echo by Robin Haig. Make sure you're doing the echo with me. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Well done everybody, and thank you for joining in. Now, since we've got our brilliant young ensemble on stage, we're going to make full use of them by involving them in our next piece too. And this is by the composer Zoe Martlew, and it's called Slap On. Now, if you put your slap on, what that means is you're getting ready to go out and have fun and have a party somewhere. But also, of course, slap could mean the sound you make with your hands, clapping, or on your body. And all those ideas are in Zoe's piece, so watch and listen carefully as every musician on stage plays their instrument but also makes sounds in different ways. And look out for the ending. It's a very unusual ending. So thank you to our young ensemble for joining us for those two pieces. We're going to see them again later in the final piece in our concert, which also involves you, as it's a song called Fast Car, and we'll learn more about that later. But our next composer whose music we're going to perform, Gabriella Smith, didn't get in a fast car. Instead, she got on her surfboard and paddled a short way out into the ocean until she was floating above a coral reef. Now, a coral reef is like a miniature ecosystem on the seabed, full of colourful creatures. And Gabriella lowered down an underwater microphone so she could record the sounds of this coral reef. And she was amazed at the sounds she heard. She was amazed at how vibrant they were, how loud they were, and the diversity of them. And so in this piece of music she's composed for us, she uses the instruments in very unusual ways to imitate those sounds. For instance, Ishani on the piano has to lean inside the piano to dampen the strings with her fingers while playing. That sounds like this. Alice bounces a pencil off the strings of her violin. Tamaki plucks the string of her cello with great force while sliding her finger up and down the fingerboard. And Ollie has gathered from his kitchen cupboards all sorts of metal objects that make brilliant sounds, including, unbelievably, a cheese grater. If we combine all these sounds together in music, we call this the texture of the music. And this is what the texture sounds like, with all those sounds buzzing around together. In the second half of the piece, the music slows down and Gabriella starts to compose music that reflects more about her thoughts and feelings on being out on the ocean and seeing this coral reef. And she uses harmonies. Now, harmony in music is where you combine two or more notes. And quite often, harmony gives the music its emotional depth or emotional context. Here's the first three harmonies that Gabriella uses. So this is the really brilliant and unique sound world of Gabriella's piece. She's named it after the group of animals the coral reef belongs to, and it's called Anthozoa. Earlier in the concert, we heard a brand new piece composed by some students from Freezy Water St George's School in Enfield because they had taken part in one of our composition challenges. And our next composer also has taken part in one, the challenge around creating a postcard piece. A postcard piece is where you take a blank piece of paper and you can use anything to express the sort of sound you want to hear. You might use musical notes, but you might use colours or dots or patterns or lines or even words to express what you might like to hear. We were sent this fantastic piece by Rogine, who's a student at Woodridge Primary School in Barnet, and she called her piece Difference Matters, and she says about it that if difference does matter, because if everyone was the same, then no one would be special. Sirius really wanted to play this piece on the flute, so here he is to give the world premiere of Difference Matters. Slightly earlier in the concert, we heard a piece about a coral reef by Gabriella Smith. And our next piece is also inspired by the natural world, but rather than being inspired by the sound of the seabed, it's inspired by the effect light makes when it falls through a canopy of leaves in a woodland or a forest. The composer is called Daniel Kidane, and his piece is called Dappled Light, because dappled light is the name we give to that effect when sunlight comes into a woodland and creates bright patches of intense light and also cooler patches of shadow. Daniel achieves this effect in several ways. Firstly, he chooses instruments that play only high pitches, the violin, the flute and the clarinet. He doesn't use the lower pitched piano or cello at all. Secondly, Daniel uses the dynamics of the music in a really careful way. Now, dynamics is what we give the name to the volume we play the music, so whether we play it loud or soft. And Daniel asks for very specific things from that volume. He says you have to attack each note very strongly and then immediately get quieter and then let the sound fade away even further. So see if you can hear those effects as part of that texture in the music of Daniel Kidane's Dappled Light. The final piece we're going to play today before we sing our song Fast Car is a piece of music by the composer Sivan Horrocks-Hopaian. It's music that tells a story. Sivan collaborated with some dancers to tell an old folk tale called Kappa Rushes. Now, Kappa Rushes is about a girl who falls out with her family and leaves home and goes on an adventure before coming back and reconciling with them. The section of the piece, or the chapter of the story that we're about to play, is called Exile, and it's that moment where Kappa Rushes has left home and she disguises herself by making a cape or a cloak made out of rushes, tall grass-like plants. That's where she gets her name, cape or cap of rushes, Kappa Rushes. Sivan's music that she's composed has two really interesting ingredients. First of all, we hear a very high, lingering, slightly wistful melody, sometimes played by the violin, but here played by the flute. But beneath that, we have more urgent music played by the marimba and the string instruments. And this is like Kappa Rushes' heartbeat, where she's on her journey, both nervous and excited. While we perform the piece today, we're going to see a video of one of the original dancers dancing out in the countryside, surrounded by these rushes and tall grass-like plants. This is Exile by Sivan Horrocks-Hopaian. Now for our final piece today, we want to involve everybody. Our young ensemble are back on stage and we want you to join in and sing. It's a fantastic song by the composer Jonathan Dove and it's called Fast Car, and I'm going to teach you it now before we perform it. So I'll sing a bit and then you sing it back to me. It goes, today. Let's all sing that. Today, it carries on. I want a red car. Let's all sing that. I want a red car. My turn. A fast red car. All of us. A fast red car. Let's go from the beginning to that point from today. Ready? Today, I want a red car. A fast red car. Then it continues to drive very far away. With me? To drive very far away. Then it repeats that, but it goes up in pitch at the end. Have a listen. To drive very far away. Together. To drive very far away. Fantastic. Let's go from the beginning to that point there. The whole of our verse. Today. Are you ready? Today, I want a red car. A fast red car. To drive very far away. To drive very far away. Now in the song we sing that verse twice, and then the music changes and goes somewhere much more thoughtful as we think about the kind of places we might go in our fast car. And it goes, maybe to the sea or a distant city. Let's sing that together for maybe. Maybe to the sea or a distant city. And it carries on. When nobody knows me and I don't understand what they say. We'll go from maybe and add that last bit in. Maybe to the sea or a distant city. When nobody knows me and I don't understand what they say. Great. And then it goes back to our verse, but the final verse starts with a really joyous, but anyway. Let's all do that together. But anyway. And then at the end, we sing the words and stay and stretch out the word stay like this. And stay. We do it twice with me. And stay. Great. So here is a performance with the London Sinfonietta, the Sound Out Young Ensemble, and all of you singing along too in Jonathan Dove's joyous song, Fast Car.
Very far.
I hope you enjoyed singing that song. We've enjoyed playing it, as in fact we've enjoyed playing all the pieces in today's concert. So from all of us at the London Sinfonietta, thank you very much for watching this Sound Out concert, and I hope it inspires you to compose at school or at home and explore how you can express yourselves through sound and through music. But for now, goodbye.